Hey everyone, welcome to the Game Master Roundtable. My name is Wally. I'm joined by Fred from How to D&D, and today we are going to share with you the Player's Expansion 2 for Shadowdark RPG. So if you are unfamiliar with this is the second in the series where you are getting a plethora of brand new classes and ancestries that you can use with your game master's permission, of course, in your Shadowdark RPG game. Yes, exactly. So, Fred has been playing a lot of Shadowdark. I play when Fred plays on the channel. That's about all I've been playing, but it was a lot of fun. Fred, I think I'm going to turn it over to you. I think you're better suited to lead us on this expedition through what we've created. We are currently starting and looking at the cover art. So if you want to just introduce yourself there real quick and tell us about this cover art that we have here.
So I did the cover art,
You did
which
good.
is
I love
which
it.
is why it looks like it was drawn by a human. Um, I did the cover art because I didn't want to pay somebody to do the cover art, frankly. And most of my family are artistic,
Hmm.
and I find artists to be snowflakes. So I decided I was just going to do it myself because I got my brother to do the original artwork for the first one,
Hmm.
and it was stressful, and it was stressful for him. So I decided, bugger it, I'll just do it myself.
Just
So
did it
it's
yourself.
deliberately done by a human. It's done by me. It's
Okay.
drawn with pen and pencil and a rubber, not a condom, an eraser for those of you in America. Okay. Um, we call a rubber the thing that you rub out pencil with here in New Zealand, but for those of you I know, you use the word eraser. I used marker pens, black marker pens, and once I'd drawn it, Wally said, "Could you make the background black?" And I was like, "You do realize I don't do this on Photoshop. I've got to color that in." So instead of the fact that I'm not really an artist and I don't particularly like drawing, I just got some markers, some black markers, and I filled it all in.
You did good,
Will
Fred.
I
You
do a
did
better
good.
job of that artwork in the future? Probably.
Hmm.
But at the time, it was stressful and painful, and I get a sore hand after 45 minutes of drawing. So, yeah. So I've done the artwork, and is it as good as my brother's artwork? Probably not. But Wally was impressed,
Hmm.
and I was relatively happy with the end result, and so that's why we got the artwork that we have in the front. That's the deal behind that.
I love it.
So yes.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
And so kind of let's dive into what is in the book. What was the, because I joined you on this project. This was something. This was your
Ye-
idea and creation. And you're like, Wally, you're gonna help me with this. I'm like, okay. So kind of guide us through that. What was the reason for this one? What were you planning to do, and what is in this? Oh, and by the way, for those of you that are joining us, the Player's Expansion 2 for Shadowdark RPG, there is a link in the description below that'll take you to Drive Through RPG, and that is a pay what you want. So you can pick this up for free, and you can go through it, and if you like it, you can use it in your game. If you really, really like it, you can come back later, maybe leave like 50 cents or $1. That would be awesome to help us achieve those awards there on Drive Through RPG. But if you just want to go pick it up for free, go do it. The link's below. Take it away, Fred.
Yeah. Yeah, also reviews are nice. It's
Yes,
nice if you can
reviews.
review the product if you know you think
Mm-hmm.
it's worth a review. That would be helpful. And also feedback. If you spot any errors, let me know because there's a section in Drive Through RPG for doing that sort of thing, and I do look.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also in the book there is my email address, which I have hidden from everywhere else on the internet, but it is there, so you can actually email me and give me feedback since it's all alpha play test, none of the stuff in that has been tested. Um, so there's a couple of things that happened and why the second book happened and why I got Wally involved. First off, this is my new favorite version of Dungeons and Dragons. Okay,
Cool.
Shadowdark.
Mm-hmm.
But there's only four classes in here. There's the fighter, the wizard, the thief and the priest, which is basically the cleric and rogue.
Right.
Okay.
Hmm.
And my players kind of wanted the traditional 12 that they used to in modern D&D. So I then had to go back with the first book and go through this and try to figure out how to distill these concepts into Shadowdark, which was not easy, but we did it. So I wound up doing the barbarian, the bard, the druid, the fight, not the fighter, the monk, the paladin, the ranger, the sorcerer, the warlock, and I did a shaman and a battle something commander, and something else. Oh yeah, yeah, some other things. There's about
Hmm.
10, 10 classes. We did
Right.
10 classes. But after doing that and having play tested some of those
Hmm.
with my home group and some of the ancestries we made,
Hmm. We tested
my
some on
home
this
group,
channel too, right? Some of the
yeah,
yeah. Hmm.
yeah, we play tested them on your channel for sure
Yeah, I
with
think Phil broke
YouTubers.
the
But I've
shaman.
Yeah, and I've been mucking around with this stuff with my home group
Hmm.
to a certain degree, but really I've been I haven't really let them play around. I've let them look because I
Mm.
wanted to force them to play the four traditional classes because I'm a nasty bastard. And I wanted them to play from level 0 through to level 10
Hmm.
and be completely familiar with the four classes before they started playing with something else
Makes
so that
sense.
they were capable of ripping my stuff to pieces, which they are. And we've just about done that. So so my players, my home group, then asked me if I would design additional classes for Shadowdark RPG, uh, and that was kind of part of the discussion for the first book. But then we had that same discussion again for the second book, and somebody said multi-classing, and I said hell no. And then I had to explain to them why. I'm not going to go into all the details on that, but
Okay.
I collected up all of my players' ideas for classes that they would like to add of their own sort of, their own little fantasies that they have in the
Hmm.
world, all the things that they have come across in older versions of D&D. But I wasn't sure if I would be successful in doing this. I had a lot of influence that came from not just their feedback, but also this book, like Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, was a big sort of. I filled in some stuff from here.
Okay.
Plus, I looked at some of the stuff they were talking about in Tasha's,
Hmm.
and then I also looked at Xanathar's Guide to Everything
Oh yeah.
for a lot of what they wanted me to sort of include to see if I could do that
Hmm.
or how it would be structured. And this was partly, they were partly useful. And then I also looked at this when it came to the ancestries,
Hmm.
which is one of the part of the reasons why I decided to fob it off onto Wally DM. Um, because doing the classes, doing 11, 10, 11 classes is
Yeah.
hard enough work. Doing the ancestries as well, since I'd done ancestries and
Hmm.
classes with like AJ Pickett the
Yeah.
first time and Mitchell and yeah. So yeah, the the profit sharing thing meant that the pie was very small and now I had to do a lot more work. So
Hmm.
yeah, there's lots of different reasons why, but I asked Wally to do the ancestries. He agreed to it, but only if I would help him with mechanics, basically, which I totally understand. It's
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
And everything in this is alpha play test materials, and it's never been tested. And I will be spending this year testing the stuff in the Players Expansion 2 and the first one. The Players
Okay.
Expansion, the first one and the second one will be this is the year, and probably possibly going into 2027,
Wow.
which means that all that stuff will get updated. In fact, there will be some updates for the first one. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of
Yeah.
reasons why I did it that way, and I'm glad that I got Wally to help me out
Hmm.
because it was an opportunity. I've never worked with Wally before, and actually in the creative process. And I think I don't know. Would you say that it was a reasonable experience and not painful? And
I think so. Yeah. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
satisfactory. Check mark. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. I think it was a tick. Yeah.
Yes. And then once you get all the play testing done for the two, I mean, one of the goals is also to make a print version. Is that correct?
Yes.
Or is that
Yeah.
my goal or your goal? I know it's
Oh
my
no,
goal.
no, that's your goal and my goal.
Okay.
To be fair, like I couldn't care less as long as I'm not losing money on doing this sort of stuff
Yeah.
because I'm mostly retired. So I just don't care about that sort of thing. I know, like everybody else is like, I've got to make money off it.
Yeah.
So I'm not really that worried about it. What I am worried
Mm-hmm.
about is if I get somebody else involved and I'm using their time and labor and effort and all that sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not getting paid, that's something I would be upset by. But
Mm-hmm.
neither do I want to pay them and be out of pocket myself. So that ain't going to happen. So this is why we do the profit share thing. Um, but yeah, so that's the gist of it. And yeah, do we want to
Yeah.
promote your books before we get into the classes and then the ancestries, dude?
Well, I do have a few books out there, and one of them
Yeah.
that I want to actually say before we get started on the Shadowdark Players Expansion 2 is I do want to say that I have a pre-launch page for my Kickstarter. I am starting to write 5th edition adventure modules. I have 2 already: the Mystery at the Golden Sturgeon, and where's the other one at? If you can see that, yeah, I can't even get it on the screen. Everything's backwards. Escape from Scarecrow Mansion. There we go. I am creating the 3rd one in the series for that. It's going to be called Kobold, Cliff, and the Cyclops. I hope to playtest it on this channel. But what I would like to do, and Fred, you've kind of like agreed to it, maybe, I think, is I want to put as a stretch goal to be able to create a Shadowdark version of it. So we'll have to see how that goes. I've also taken the liberty of putting a link to that Kickstarter page. The lowest the lowest pledge level is only $5. So if you want to pledge $5, you get a copy of the PDF. But if we hit that stretch goal, then Fred and I are going to work together, put a Shadowdark version together. So that's my plug.
So for those of you who haven't figured it out, I will agree to do anything Wally wants me to do as long as he doesn't require me to harvest all of my organs so that he can sell them off to the highest bidder. That's probably that would be my limit. Not something I'm really keen on.
Yeah,
Is
especially
yeah,
being retired, you need those a bit.
I still need those organs, so that they're still doing their job right now.
That's right. That's
So
right.
yeah, and look, there's this book. Like
Yes.
one of the great things about working with Wally is he actually knows what he's doing. And the Wally DM's Journal of Puzzle Encounters is one of my favorite books, and
Oh,
it's
thanks.
getting a big, huge
Upgrade.
upgrade.
Yes.
Um,
Uh-huh.
and is it going to get player handouts as well?
I believe so. I'm not quite for certain yet how everything's going to go, but yeah, for those of you that watched my last live stream, we talked about the Game Master's book of Puzzles and Wonders. I'll be working with the folks with the Game Master's lineup, the Game Master's Guide to Random Encounters, to non-player characters, to Puzzles, Traps, and Dungeons. You've seen them in your local game stores, your Barnes & Nobles, your Targets, and stuff like that. And I'm super excited. And we're taking my 2 puzzle books plus about 20 brand new puzzles and putting it all into one professionally edited, which I've never had with my other books. Professionally edited. Not to say that you weren't a professional editor, Fred. You did a
Thanks,
fantastic
Wally.
job.
Appreciate
You
that.
did a
Yeah.
really good job on the second one. Uh, but yes, it's going to go through the whole gambit of being professionally published. I'm super excited about it. But yeah.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, I've been for years, ever since he released his first book, hassling him to do player handouts for it.
Yes. They need it.
I'm like that fly, that dirty fly that just keeps hanging around, and you're like, oh, I know you keep saying it. Oh, I know you keep saying it. But and then of course he's got the Wally DM's Journal of Puzzle Encounters onto the next,
Mm-hmm.
which is the second book,
Yes.
which he was just talking about. And then of course we have the
Quintessential guide.
quintessential guide to monster encounters as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
And and there's other stuff coming, but let's get on to the Shadow Dark stuff because that's
Shadow
why
Dark.
you're here and
It
why we have
is.
a live stream called that in the first place.
Yes.
So I believe we have the first one up in front of us, ready to talk about
That is
because we
correct.
have
We have
yeah
the Cursed Blade is the very first
yeah.
one.
So
All
for
of these
those of
in
you who don't know,
alphabetical
there's
order. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So there's 11. There's the Cursed Blade, the Elemental Warrior, the Monster Slayer, the Mystical Archer, the Psychic Infiltrator, the Samurai, the Shadowstalker, the Spell Sword, the Swashbuckler, the War Mage, the War
Mm-hmm.
Master, and then we got the Ancestries, and there's about 16 Ancestries, which I won't explain right now. We'll just deal with the classes. So the Cursed Blade would be our first place to start. So there's a couple of things with the Cursed Blade. I was inspired by the request from one of my players in my home group
Mm-hmm.
to have a Hex Blade, which basically the Hexblade is a subclass in D&D 5e, but the Hexblade has kind of been around in, I think, version 3. It was floated around as a class or something like that. I can't remember whether it was a class or a prestige class or
Hmm.
I don't know, a bootleg tack on thing or whatever. Um, so this is obviously a warlock martial fighter with kind of dark undertones.
I like that.
For those of you who are wondering, like that's the gist of the concept. And so um, the things that it needed to have was it needed to have weapons.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got access to a lot of weapons, and it has access to armor, like leather armor and chainmail, and you can have your shield. Um, its hit points are kind of on par. I kind of look at the Cursed Blade as venturing partly into what the priest in Shadowdark is, which is
Mm-hmm.
why it's D6. So I was kind of using the priest or the priest cleric as a place to start. And then it has a magic weapon. So you actually, when you have a blade, you can use an action and touch it and make that weapon magical for 3 rounds. And there's a check that you have to make. I'm not going to explain all the mechanics behind that because it's there. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's as simple as I could make it, and hopefully it makes sense. And it is
I think it
obviously
does.
based off Holy Weapon, the spell, but it's not as powerful as Holy Weapon. But also too, you don't have the same sort of restrictions. Like
Mm.
you can fail the spellcasting check to transform your weapon into a magic weapon, um, but you don't need to complete a rest to be able to reuse it again.
Hmm.
So it's something that even if you fail it, there's still a chance next round you could give it another go if you wanted to. Um, it has Eldritch Blast, just like the Warlock that I did for the first book, and I am very much aware that a D4 doesn't seem like a lot of damage, but given the nature of Shadow Dark, and since most monsters, even a level 10 monster, it's probably got at the most 45 hit points,
Mm-hmm.
you should still be fine.
It does. It
It
puts
should
in
be it should be
solid
all right.
work. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it should still be all right. And it's really only there to be used for ranged attacks when you're not able to
Mm.
get up close and messy. It's got a couple of patron boons, but it's got about half the patron boons that you would normally get from the Warlock. So I leaned into things like the written language, so being able to read written languages and symbols,
Yeah.
summoning a skeleton or a ghoul for an hour
Mm.
each day, reading surface thoughts of one creature, being able to apply disadvantage to the next d20 roll a target makes within far range, and detecting magic, and not having to breathe air to survive. These aren't magical effects that you just necessarily turn on and off. Unless it says action, they're
Mm-hmm.
probably always in effect.
Their passive abilities. Mm-hmm.
They're passive abilities, which is what makes the Cursed Blade and the Warlock, I think, more distinctive in their nature, in that there isn't a requirement to make a dice roll. They're just good at it. It's part
I
and
like that.
parcel of their package.
Yeah.
And you get a number of these that you can pick up over time. Um, and there's a progression for that in the class. And then, of course, usually what I try to do with the talents table, this is when you're leveling up, is I try to make it as streamlined and as related to the class as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I always just have one, usually 12 is like choose a talent. You decide which one you want. Two I usually make is just +2 to distribute to any of your stats,
Right.
in terms of points. It's a spellcaster, so it gets a +1 on spellcasting as one of its options. There's a +1 to melee attacks with weapons.
Makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Um, and then there's also a +1 to melee damage rolls with weapons. So I've separated so that you kind of get a mix of different things, and that's sort of yeah. I don't want to go over all the titles for the Cursed Blade because it's probably the worst part of designing a Shadowdark
So
class
you have to
is
go through a
coming up with
lot of titles.
all the titles and trying to
Yeah,
come up with something new.
yeah.
It's very painful. I've tried very hard. Um, yeah, so that was the extent of it. I don't know. What did you think of the Cursed Blade when you saw it, mate?
Um, well, I'm not a warlock player in 5e. Those are like as like my bottom tier of classes. I think my favorite part about it is the patron boons. I do like those. The fact that they're always on. The summon a skeleton or ghoul, that one got my attention right away. So if I were to choose, that would probably be my first one that I would pick. Eldritch Blast, like you said, does do a lot of damage, but it's a staple of this kind of a character. So not being a fan of warlocks as much, I would still give this one a quick go and see what it's
Yeah.
all about. It looks fun.
Yeah, and you choose a patron to serve you. Like that's
Hmm.
you get to choose your patron.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, when you gain your patron boons, your patron decides what you get. So you're
Hmm.
rolling randomly to get these. You don't get to sort of like, oh, I would like to have that one, and I'll take
Yeah.
that. You have to roll a six-sided dice. So
Yeah.
you kind of you're like Oliver Twist.
Yeah.
Um, can I have some more, please? And then the master says, I'll think about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Depends on
I
what you
would.
roll.
I would try to see if I could persuade the patron towards one that I want, and probably maybe some chainmail too would be great.
Yeah. I mean, I think bringing pizza to the table, or
Yeah, yeah,
food, or
uh huh.
anything that the dungeon master really likes might sway them.
It might, yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, very good. How about the elemental warrior? This is the one that the artwork is. That's an elemental warrior on the front. So, what was your inspiration behind this one? Tell me a little bit about this one.
This is me kind of. I love martial arts. I'm a third dan black belt. I wouldn't say I am now because I'm 54 years old and haven't practiced for years. But um, you know, I'd
Hmm.
still like to think that I can break somebody's knee, and snap their neck and kill them fairly quickly if I have to. But
All right.
um, there is a monk subclass in Dungeons and Dragons 5e, the five elements, I believe it's called. Is it the five elements? It's a bloody awful subclass trying to do something that a lot of people really want, and it does it really badly.
Hmm.
And I obviously, because it's something that I love monks and
Hmm.
martial arts. I get way too obsessed with the importance of this sort of thing. A way
Uh,
of the four elements. Oh my God, it's not the five elements, it's the four elements. I put in
mm,
five elements, I think. So it's kind of my attempt to try to fix that.
okay.
It's also attempting to pander to my childish fascination with Mortal Kombat, the video game.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So, yes, this is why you'll notice that it has some weapons.
Hmm.
It isn't just sort of, it does has no weapons. I've given it some weapons, some ranged weapons and
Yeah.
some close quarter weapons. It doesn't have any armor because, um, you know, only pansies wear armor if you're a warrior, a warrior monk.
A
Only
warrior monk.
pansies wear
Yeah.
armor.
Okay.
And I used a D10 for their hit dice, which
Hmm.
is very high.
Yeah.
Like that's,
You don't see it
I
very
think
often.
that's probably the highest I don't even think the standard classes give you a D10. I think the highest one is a D8, if I remember right. So I've really sort of pushed the limit with this.
Hmm. It's
And one of the reasons why is because they don't have armor. They don't wear armor. And heck, they shouldn't need to wear armor. They shouldn't need it. They should be a soaking machine. Hit points aren't necessarily damaged. They're just an abstract, nonsensical mechanic for as a timer. So I decided that they needed to be an expert in the elements because it's the elemental warrior. So I
Mm-hmm.
gave them advantage on knowledge checks related to fire, electricity, water, earth, air, and spirit.
Makes sense.
Um, and I was sitting there deciding whether I should, you have to pick one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, nah, get them all. Why not? Give them, they should know about all that stuff.
That's
They're
right.
the elemental warrior. Let them have the lot. So, yeah. So clearly I'm incredibly biased towards this class.
Yeah.
I also gave it unarmored defense because, or unarmored, because I know it's not wearing armor, and if it's just their dexterity modifier at plus 10, they're probably going to get hit most of the time. So I thought, well, even with the hit points, it's probably
Mm-hmm.
not going to be enough. So I decided that you could add your dexterity or your constitution modifier to calculate your armor class. So you get to pick. So if your dexterity is higher, great. If your constitution is higher, you use that. But I
Nice.
don't, because the thing with Shadowdark is you don't get to stick your numbers where you want them to
Mm-hmm.
go, right?
Right.
You roll down the line. So unless your game master is really nice and says, "Oh, you can place it where you like and fiddle around a little bit," so I decided this makes it a little bit easier for your armor class to be just a teeny weeny bit better
Yeah. Pick and
if you
choose.
wanted to.
I do like
Yeah.
that.
And then elemental blow is really the Mortal Kombat aspect of it, and my attempt to deal with the four elements subclass. So your unarmed strikes that you make with your hands, your feet, elbows, knees, head, whatever the heck you want to use.
Mm-hmm.
You can use strength or dexterity when you make that attack, adding to a 20-sided dice, plus any talent bonus you have for the attack roll.
Okay.
So I think that it seems reasonable to me, even though there is only one weapon in Shadowdark, the dagger that is finessable.
Mm-hmm.
I think that your feet, your hands and elbows and knees and head should all be finessable for
Yeah.
a monk
Makes
or
sense.
an elemental warrior of some kind. So I didn't see it made any sense to do anything other than that. So that's what we do. And of course, they do a D6 because D6 is kind of down the middle in terms of damage. It's not the highest damage, it's not the lowest damage, but it's there.
Okay.
But the great thing is you get to select whether it's going to be normal damage, whether it's fire, electrical, cold, acid. Like you get to declare what sort of damage your melee attack does. That's quite deliberate.
Does that come up in Shadowdark very often, where damage
No,
type? No.
it doesn't.
So
It
it's
it
more flavor
doesn't.
than it's just
It
however.
very much
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
But there will be monsters that they will face
Mm-hmm.
that can't be hurt by certain damage types.
Okay.
There aren't really damage types in Shadow Dark, but there'll be certain things if you try to do fire damage to something, it's probably immune to it because it's got an immunity to fire or
Like a fire elemental.
electricity. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, I guess another aspect of this is um, it's magical energy.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the biggest problems too is some monsters are impervious to anything other than magical damage.
Mm.
So it doesn't matter whether it's fire, electricity, cold, acid. If it's not magical, it ain't going to do anything.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why you don't see the D6 progress in terms of levels because you're doing magical damage, buddy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the trade-off,
Handy.
which means you don't need to have a magical weapon. If you're an elemental monk, you are the weapon. Um, and then elemental blast is very much leaning into the, I don't know, Sonya Blade,
Mm.
Liu Kang, all the sort of fire energy blasts that you got in Mortal Kombat. So
Mm-hmm.
you get to actually use a magical beam or bolt of fire, electricity, cold, or acid, and you make basically a spell casting check. It's a D20 plus your Constitution modifier. I didn't. I think a lot of people sort of assume that it would be something like wisdom or intelligence or charisma,
Mm.
but I actually think it's internal energy that you're dealing with when you're dealing with a monk or an elemental warrior. So that's why I used Constitution. Also, too, it doesn't come up very often.
Mm-mm.
But I also know that if you have the opportunity to boost any of your abilities, you're probably going to be boosting Constitution or dexterity or strength or something like that. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a good place to stick it.
Yeah.
It's not a hard check. It's a DC 11 to do those things.
Mm.
And the blast does actually increase. So it starts off very small. It's sort of like a D4, and then it goes up to a D6
Okay.
when your character reaches level 6 to 10. But between level 1 and 5, it's a little bit more tamer. And then the progression, is very similar in terms of the talent tree. It's same sort of structure. I think the only thing I did was I put in a option for gaining advantage on spell casting checks,
Mm.
which you can only get once, so you can't duplicate it more than once. So it's there if you want
Okay.
it. Otherwise, it's mostly feeding off boosting your stats and improving your ability to hit things with your hands, feet, do unarmed strikes, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I like this class because you did give it a ranged attack, basically. So
yeah,
if the elemental warrior is stuck in a spot where they can't punch their way out of, they can also use the elemental blast. So I like that. I love the D10 for hit points on this one. And I love the fact that you use Constitution as the modifier for the elemental blast because I think you're right. I understand why, but a lot of design not Constitution's not used very often. So
no,
very cool.
no, it's not. Um, and you'll probably notice that there's no tied in spell failure.
Mm-hmm.
So if you fail it, it's not like you're casting a spell as such, really. So that's why there's if you fail it, you can't try to do it again because it's intended to be used. Either the elemental blow or the elemental blast is intended to be used every round. Your last port of call would be to do something like weapon attacks.
Yeah.
Like I almost feel like the giving you the option to have use normal weapons is almost like it's there more of a just a to satisfy some people who like I want to have weapons as well.
Ah.
But really, yeah, the
You
go-to
don't
would
even need
probably
them.
be the elemental blow and the elemental blast.
Yeah. Makes sense. Very cool.
Yeah.
I like this one. Let's move on to the next one. Before we do, though, if you are just joining us, make sure that you check the comment section or the description of this video, and there is a link to this. This is the Player's Expansion 2 for Shadowdark RPG. You can pick this up for free. It is a pay what you want, and all you need to do is follow the link and go over and get it. Our next class is the Monster Slayer.
So I think this is the one class that I've already had somebody comment on it and said they like the Monster Slayer. I'm not really surprised because the concept of the Monster Slayer or the Monster Hunter is in every class. I remember somebody on my channel saying, who follows me and he's a patron, saying, um, why have a Monster Slayer? Every class is a Monster Slayer. I was like,
That's true.
yeah, fair enough. But there is a subclass and there are classes that people have allowed people to play in Dungeons and Dragons, whether that's modern or older versions that are basically a Monster Slayer or Monster Hunter. I didn't even worry about the Monster Slayer name because, frankly, the monster. If you do a Google search of Monster Slayer, you're more likely to get a video game than you are to get a Wizards
Yeah.
of the Coast property.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's just too generic to shove an IP on.
That's true.
Um, So when I was doing this, I did look at the Monster Slayer subclass,
Mm-hmm.
but to be frank, I actually probably leaned more into Van Helsing from
Oh.
Dracula stories and vampire stories. Uh, there's that Witcher series with Henry Cavill.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not really a huge fan of the Witcher series, but how the Witcher worked, he's basically a monster hunter,
Yeah.
I thought was clever. And then there's another character, some of you might know Beowulf, is basically sort of like a mixed breed, mixed, between the dark and the light. So they
Okay.
all helped with the development of the class. Those are the things I really leaned on
Yeah.
to sort of
Some
help
good
make that.
inspiration for sure. Mm-hmm.
Mm. So yeah, their intention is to seek out vampires, dragons, fiends, fae, evil monsters of the dark. That's their calling. And you'll notice with all of the classes that there's always something that is non-combat as well as combat. I always try to make sure there's something they can do that's more exploration or social interaction or outside of I just blast it with magic or beat it to death if I can help it.
Okay.
So what I did is I gave it a lot of weapons. I'm not going to go over all of them. They got armor, so they can use armor and shields,
Hmm.
leather and chain
Makes
and
sense.
shields. And I really sort of for the hit dice, I leaned again on the cleric
Okay.
in terms of using a D6 rather than the fighter's D8. I didn't think that was necessary to do that because I was going to give them some magical stuff as well.
Yeah.
Um, and they're a monster expert. So I created this is the thing that I really wanted them to be able to do well. And you could say, well, this is a combat thing. Well, yes and no to a certain degree.
Hmm.
The concept is that you know if or what the immunities of a monster are if they have a chaotic alignment and they're within near range, which is about 30 feet or less. And you are also an expert on monsters and creatures, so you gain advantage on checks related to knowing about them. So the intention behind that was that as long as the creature was chaotic in alignment, then you know what their immunities are, or if they have any. That's automatic. If you want to know more, the intention is you might have to roll a check depending on
Hmm.
how difficult the check is. The game master or dungeon master might ask you to make a check. You would have advantage on making that check, whatever that check is going to be, whatever stat they decide it's going to be. Okay, so that's the intention.
Yeah, that's really good flavor for the class. It gives them the tactical. They can plan. They know they can relay the information. So yeah, I like this.
Yeah. So and then I don't know if that ability is going to survive playtesting, but we'll see. And then I gave it Stalker because I realized that you're dealing with all these really nasty monsters, and if you
Hmm.
cannot sneak up on them, you're probably not going to survive. So
Especially
you're
with
an
only a
expert.
D6 of hit points, Fred.
That's right. Yeah, you are a short-lived monster slayer.
Uh-huh.
So you're an expert in detecting monsters and stealth. So you have advantage on checks related to sensing a creature, sneaking and hiding. And it's really taking some of the thief's abilities and sort of porting them across. It is a mixture of stalking and moving around or stealthy stuff, but
Hmm.
it's also related. You'll see there's a section that says related to sensing a creature. So that's really about can I see them, hear them, or smell them? Um, that's what that was trying to do. And they also get spell casting, but they don't get a lot of spells. This is not even really a half caster. This is like a
Just
semi caster.
so two questions on this.
Yeah.
The first one is I see the character level. So these accumulate, right? So you have protection from evil at first level, and then
Yeah.
at third level you have zone of truth and protection from evil. So you keep the
Yeah.
prior ones, right? And then the second thing I wanted to ask you too was seeing. I really thought this was cool that you just picked 5 spells for the appropriate level that were on theme with the character class. Is this something? Um, have you done this before? Was this something inspired by somewhere else? What was your thoughts? How did you come up with that? Where you're just like, I think they're just going to get because you just said it yourself. It's not a full caster, not a half caster, just
No.
every once in a while caster.
Well, it's not even that.
Yeah,
they're very
yeah,
tunnel vision.
yeah.
It's very narrow. It's got a
Yeah.
very specific
Because
purpose, right?
yeah, we'll see this again in a few other ones too, if I remember.
Yes, you will. And so yes, it was partly inspired by the subclass, the Monster Slayer, but I also had to do a lot of research on Shadowdark spells and
Mm,
how they worked and when they would become available and what made the most sense. And I think the things that I had discovered so far playing the game is that protection from evil is an extremely useful spell at level 1 in Shadowdark, but
okay.
almost nobody really takes it because you only get so many spells in Shadowdark.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted that to be, since it fitted really nicely with the Monster Slayer, I wanted that to be there. And then when they reach third level, basically this is a tier 2 spell, the Zone of Truth.
Mm-hmm.
you need to be able to. I wanted them to be able to do something other than just detect if something's evil. I wanted them to be able to talk to something and be able to tell if they were bullshitting. So zone of truth
Yeah.
is important, right? Because if they're bullshitting you, then you kill it, and if they're not, it gets to live. Um, and then level five, I've seen Magic Circle. It's a tier three spell. I've seen it in action. It
Hmm.
is the only thing that really kept my home group alive after facing two vampires at the same time.
Nice.
And I mean, two characters are fairly badly messed up. One is on the verge of having no constitution at all. I think they got down to four when they had a battle with the vampire,
Hmm.
and the other one's on zero. But fortunately, has a magic item that keeps their constitution above zero. So as long as he keeps it on, he's still alive. Otherwise, he's toast. Um, Magic Circle is amazingly useful. So it's really useful not just for the person who's using it, but the group as
Hmm.
long as they stay close. So I thought that was probably essential. Flame Strike is probably not so monster slayery, but Hold Monster was pretty obvious.
Oh
So
yeah.
yes, I did focus very heavily on that, and you'll notice that the talent tree is a mixture of um, ranged attack stuff and spell casting.
Yeah.
The monster slayer is not really built to get up close because getting up close to a vampire, dragon, and a fiend is really stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. That's not just for the monster slayer. That's for all of them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But the
Yeah.
monster slayer should at least know
Yeah.
it's not a good idea to specialize in getting up close if you can help
It's
it.
because they're a
Yeah,
monster expert.
that's right.
Cool. Yep. I like that one. Let's move on to the mystical archer. I'm sure the folks at home
Um,
know where this one came from.
oh, I bet they do. I bet they already figured it out. It's the arcane archer. It's a favorite subclass. The arcane archers existed before. It was a subclass in 5e. It's been around a while. So this class is trying to sort of capture that idea. And it is also something that was requested by my home group.
Mm.
The Arcane Archer did come up. It has also got vibes of Hawkeye from the Marvel Universe, if you
Oh,
hadn't figured it out.
yeah.
If you look at how it's sort of structured, it's certainly got a magical and mystical sort of aspect to it.
Hmm.
But it also has the sort of trick shot thing going on where arrows do stuff. And that was quite deliberate on my part. I wanted them to be able to have something that they could do with arrows
Hmm.
that they could choose and do various things depending on the situation. Like, so there's lots of it wasn't just I shoot and do damage.
Right.
I wanted them to do more than that. So they obviously get bows, daggers, short sword, long sword, but the thing that they really need to be focusing on is the bow.
Right.
It doesn't matter whether it's a short bow or long bow. They get leather armor and chainmail, but no shields because they're not going to have time to hold that shield because they're supposed to be holding a bow. Hence why there is no shield, people. If you're running around with melee weapons with your mystical archer, you are doing something wrong. It has got very few hit points. It is kind of like the wizard.
Okay.
The difference being in that wizards don't get armor at all. This one at least gets some armor.
Hmm.
Can wear some armor.
I thought the chainmail was
Um,
pretty generous, to be fair.
I thought it was too. I,
Hmm.
I, I might change my mind later on in play testing.
Yeah.
We'll see how we go. Um, I decided that detect magic was probably the most sensible thing to give them,
Hmm.
and I really sort of spread it out because I decided that I didn't need to get tied necessarily to a particular ability stat for
Hmm.
this. So you can cast detect magic with a DC 11 spellcasting check using intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. You decide which one, whichever is bigger. Could not care less. Um, but you'll also know there's no failure. There's no talk of if I fail this, I can't do it again that
Hmm.
day. Because that, I guess the idea is I'm only really giving them three things they can do. One of them is
Right.
really big.
Hmm. There.
And if I take away one of their three things that they can do because they failed it, now
Goes
they only
bad.
have two things they can do. So I might feel differently about this. That line might go in with it. If you fail it, you can't do it again for until you take a long rest. But right now, I'm leaving it open.
Okay.
I know that is not necessarily how a lot of the core classes are built. The idea is there's risk, but I think the problem is if you're using detect magic, you cast detect magic and you're using up your action, you've lost your action, and now you have to decide next round whether you want to try and do it again. Um, I would imagine they're going to use it outside of combat anyway, so
Yeah,
I just
I
don't
think
think
so.
there was any point getting too carried away or worrying about it.
Hmm.
I want them to be able to detect magic, but there are going to be times when they can't.
Yeah.
Mystical knowledge, you have advantage on checks related to knowledge on magic. It's pretty obvious. It's a mystical archer. I kind of feel like that's how a wizard should be, is they should know about magical stuff. So that's what I put it in. So it's a sort of a non-combat thing. And then their main thing, their combat aspect, is a magical shot. So you can imbue an arrow. So you have to make sure you have arrows. If you run out of arrows, you're not going to be able to do this.
Yeah.
Um, and you imbue magical energy when you fire it from a bow. And you get to do one of the following things per round. Okay, it doesn't give you additional shots, so you get either +1 to the damage roll with your arrow, you get +1 to the attack roll. So you have to decide, I'm firing a sharp arrow, an accurate
Hmm.
arrow. You can't make that decision after. You
Yeah.
should be making that decision beforehand. Okay, that's the intention. The seeking arrow, basically no disadvantage on shooting targets in cover, because you get disadvantage if you're shooting in cover in Shadowdark, if you're using cover rules at all. The elemental arrow basically allows you to change the damage type. If that would be important, it might not be important. But if you need that, if you're finding you're dealing with something that, well, I kind of need to change the damage type to do anything to it, then you can.
Hmm.
The returning arrow, so once this arrow hits or misses its target, it returns to the quiver. So if you're running really low and you're down to one arrow, and you're like, oh no, I need my arrow back. Whether I hit or miss, I
Yeah.
need it to come back to my quiver so I can fire it
Or maybe
again
maybe
before I
it's
get to town or somewhere.
yeah, maybe it's an arrow you got for Christmas or something, and you're just like, oh no, it's sentimental value or something.
It's primarily there to ensure that if you do start running out of arrows, you can use
You
this
can use.
ability to
Mhm.
basically use the same arrow over and over again and keep returning it to your quiver. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the paralyzing arrow is really allows you to paralyze the target if you hit it for one round. So there's no sort
It's
of
very strong.
1d4 rounds, it's just one round. So you
Okay.
really have to decide that it's going to be important enough to do so.
Gotcha.
Most combats in Shadowdark are pretty quick, so it probably will be useful.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Couple people in the live chat. Hey, thank you everybody for joining us. That's awesome. Let's see here. Dan says, been watching your stuff for 8.5 years. Wally, love you, man. Hey, thank you very much, Dan. I appreciate that. Thanks for hanging out and thanks for the continued support. That is awesome. Hopefully, some new videos very soon. Maybe next month. Oh, Derp is in the chat. Derp says, probably have Detect Magic Wizard mishap on a crit fail and likes the class, but not the Paralyzed Arrow. So thanks
Yeah.
for joining us as well, Derp.
Yeah. So the paralyzing arrow is basically just a stunning arrow.
Yeah.
And you can always change stuff yourself. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I love this because Hawkeye, the arrows and the Hawkeye and Avengers was always one of my favorites. How he knows which one to pull out when he reaches behind it was always how the heck did he do that? Know which one's which. I tried playing the Arcane Archer in 5e before. It was dissatisfying. So
Yeah.
this would probably be one that I would probably give a go right off the bat. So
And that was my intention, to make sure that it was a satisfying
yeah,
archer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. That's the Mystical Archer. Let's move on to the Psychic Infiltrator.
Okay. So The Psychic Infiltrator is not my favorite one to have had to design.
Okay.
It is based off the Soul Knife subclass,
Mm.
which I consider to be very poorly conceived and designed in
Okay.
terms of its narrative and mechanics in Dungeons and Dragons. It is often a favorite, yet I don't understand why, because it was so bad. So I reimagined this class into something I think is far cooler. I had a lot of trouble nailing down the psychic nature of this class. I really did it. It was a huge struggle.
Okay.
So they got a few weapons that seemed sensible to me,
Mm-hmm.
but really their weapon proficiencies aren't its key thing that's important to the class. Like being able to use crossbows or daggers or a long bow or short sword. That's not the thing that you're really. If you're using that, you may be doing something wrong. I don't know. Maybe something right. Probably not. No, it's really designed around the psychic blade. It gets leather armor, no shields, and so it is very much loosely based off the thief,
Mm.
I think, in many respects. I was kind of leaning more into the thief and the wizard when I was looking at this, but the psychic blade is its key thing in terms of combat. So as an action, you can create an invisible psychic blade. Invisible, that's right. You can't see it. That does 1d6 damage when you hit a target. It's a DC 12 Constitutional Wisdom check. You decide to form the blade for 1 minute. After 1 minute, it's no longer there. It does +1 to attack and damage rolls. So it's basically a magic weapon
Mm.
for 1 minute. If you fail a check, you must rest to regain the magical blade.
Oh.
This does have a failure aspect to it,
Wow.
and there's a couple of reasons why.
Okay.
Primarily because it's also a partial spellcaster,
Mm.
and it does have weapons. So if I had not done it this way, my intention was that there would be times when the psychic blade would not be available. You might fail a check and have to wait until you finish your rest.
Yeah.
But having a magical blade that is also invisible is kind of better than magic weapon, because the magic weapon thing, like you can see it,
Mm-hmm.
you can take it off somebody. You can't take the psychic blade off a psychic infiltrator because they create it out of nothing. So that's probably far more deadly and dangerous, and therefore far more useful to you. So yeah, there's going to be a risk, but there's also a chance that you're not going to get disarmed
Yeah.
really. Even if you get captured or something, you're still going to have the psychic blade. You just got to hopefully not fail that check.
Yeah. You can also
Um,
do shenanigans with it, like in a tavern or something. I mean, it's
oh
invisible,
yes,
so
and
people
yes, this
are not going to
the
see.
shenanigans is exactly what the psychic blade is all about. Yeah.
Yes.
Shadow Veil is basically advantage on checks related to hiding and sneaking, which is to sort of taking a piece of the thief and incorporating it into this, because it's an infiltrator. So the
Mm.
idea is you infiltrate the mind and the body, you sneak around, and then you strike, and there's no weapon to find because you probably used your psychic blade to finish them off. So there's no murder weapon. So, and so that was really where we were going with that. And then, of
Yes.
course, it does have some spell casting, and I was very careful about what I selected. I selected things that I thought would be suitable for an infiltrator. So being able to charm somebody so you can get past the guards and into a location, detecting thoughts so you can
That's a good
figure
one.
out what people are thinking,
Mm-hmm.
being able to alter self, your appearance, use an arcane eye to scope out the place, and teleport so you can get from one place to the other and probably somewhere you're not supposed to be. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think they were all sort of very fitting for that particular class. And I honestly think this probably does it better than the Soul Knife,
Mm.
but it will be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
Never know.
Yeah. And once again, just like the Monster Slayer here, we have the the 5 spells that you get as you progress through the levels, and just handpicked on theme ones
Yeah,
that you would use as this kind of a class, which I really really like that method. So
yeah,
very
yeah.
cool.
I haven't seen this used before,
Hmm.
but I did decide that it had a place. Um, there's always there's a nice aspect to the game where you get to choose what you want to cast or
Yeah.
use. But I think there's also it can take away from the nature of the class because it's I mean
Yeah.
it's really not that hard to make a class for Shadowdark. You can do it.
Hmm.
They're not that complicated. It's not like 5e or 4e or 3.5 or Pathfinder or something like that,
Right.
or even Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. That you're designing for an even simpler system than basic D&D.
Mm.
So
Yeah. Very cool. I like it. Let's move on to the samurai.
yeah. The samurai is a funny story. So this is a product of dissatisfaction. Somebody being very
Okay.
upset with the options available to them. So I have a person in my home group, Simon, um, who wanted to play a samurai. So I was only letting them use the 4 standard classes in the Shadowdark core rulebook. So he decided he'd use a fighter
Hmm.
for this to represent his samurai, and he didn't like it. He really did not like the fighter. He said it was boring. What am I doing here? Like I get to hit the thing and then I hit harder, or I do more damage, or I have more armor, blah, 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 blah. So there's a lot of fucking whining from Simon. Um,
Damn it, Simon.
yeah, it didn't capture the spirit of the ancient warrior, the samurai. And I'm like, okay, okay, I will make a samurai.
Yeah.
So I sat down, and the samurai class was a lot of fun to create,
Okay.
frankly, even though I am whining about Simon. It required a lot of research, historical research,
Hmm.
because Simon is a historian and a vet. So he knows way too much about stuff that nobody gives a shit about. So I had to make sure I did my research. And I think it ended up coming out just about perfect, if you
Yeah.
ask me.
Hmm.
So it basically has all swords, daggers. The samurai
Makes
did
sense.
use bows, so it's got bows, got spear, staff, hammer. It's got a lot of stuff. Like the only thing it doesn't really have is the big sort of two-handed weapons sort of stuff. I think there's only a handful of weapons it doesn't actually have access to that weren't really used by the samurai that really.
Mm.
So yeah, and then it gets to use all armor and shields, which is again very much based off the fighter class. Since he was whining about the fighter class, the samurai was an attempt to make it more of a historical and better fighter for what he wanted. It's a D8 for your hit dice, and it's got the Bushido code, so you're immune to fear effects. You can't frighten a samurai away because they're probably trying to commit suicide anyway.
Oh my.
So why would they run away if they are seeking out death? Um, so I just included that in there. The aesthetic aspect is basically advantage on checks related to literature and art.
Mm.
Um, you can write official documents using paper, ink, quills, and advanced calligraphy. Sounds really weird, but believe it or not, samurais were right into doing this sort of stuff. This was their education outside of killing people or killing themselves. Uh, they were actually fairly educated in literature and art, and writing was a big aspect of that tradition. So I included that.
Interesting.
How useful is it in your game? I have no idea, but it's there. Okay, it's there because if I had left it out, Simon would have whined.
Okay.
So it's there. Yeah.
Right.
Um, Next, we get into the samurai styles, and the samurai styles are really interesting because you actually get to select something. It's not rolled randomly. Would you
Wow.
believe it?
Wow.
Select one fighting style that you have mastered at level 1. So you get one at level 1
Hmm.
out of the choices that are here, and you get to select a new samurai style at even levels. So that means you're going to get one at level 1, one at level 2, one at level 4, one at level 6, one at level 8, and one at level 10. That means you get a total of 6. How many have I
That's a
got
lot.
here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're going to get just about all of them eventually. that is actually deliberate in terms of design.
Nice.
The what makes your samurai different to somebody else's samurai is the decision to take them soon, a special ability sooner or later.
Hmm.
So if the order that you select the pick up these things is going to be different. So that's what makes your samurai different from another samurai, rather than rolling randomly and getting stuff. I really wanted them to have most of this because apparently the samurai had most of these skills. So Kenjutsu is, +1 to attack and damage rolls with swords. In addition, you get to add half your level to those rolls,
Okay.
rounded down,
That's pretty good.
which is really just a sort of a tamer version of a less powerful tamer version of the fighter feature
Hmm.
in Shadowdark. Jujitsu is unarmed strikes, can grapple or throw the target onto the ground. So you could probably do that anyway. There aren't really grappling and throwing rules in the game, but when you make an unarmed strike in Shadowdark, there aren't really a lot of rules around it. So I think most DMs are going to be going, okay, well, it's your strength modifier and add your +1
Hmm.
or add a d4 dice to that. So now your unarmed strike can be a grapple or a throw. So I just connected that in. It's probably one of the weaker abilities because there isn't a lot of rules in Shadowdark around that. I actually think that's quite a good thing, if you ask me. So Jitsu is you gain +1 to attack and damage rolls with a spear because there was a
Okay.
specialized sort of training you did for spear. But what it does is it doesn't just give you a +1 to attack and damage. It allows you to knock the target prone. Now, being prone in Shadowdark doesn't really mean anything unless the dungeon master thinks it's important.
Okay.
But consider this: if they're right next to a cliff and you knock them prone, they might be going off the cliff. If they're on a horse, they might be coming off the horse.
Oh my.
So yeah, I think there's
There's cases for it.
possibilities for it to be useful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Kujitsu is +1 to attack and damage rolls with bows,
Okay.
and you ignore the cover penalty. So you don't have to worry about disadvantage. The intention being is you're really good at hitting something, doing lots of damage, and forget about that bush they're hiding behind because you can get them right between the leaves. Um, that's the whole point of that.
Yeah.
Kenjutsu is around using bows, shooting. Um, I don't even know if I can pronounce this. Akin, Akini, +1 to armor class while wielding a sword to parry. It is basically um, as long as you're wielding a sword, you get that +1 to your armor class. So it's boosting your armor up. It's kind of just a rewrite of one of the fighter classes.
Okay.
But if you don't have a sword out, then you can't parry, so you wouldn't get the +1 to your armor class. It would always be on as long as you have a sword out. That's the intention.
Nice.
Bojutsu is +1 to attack and damage with the staff, while this allows you to push a target out of close range or trip them onto the ground. So it's kind of a little bit more useful, I guess, than maybe the spear and does something a little bit different. Um, but yeah, that's the bow. And that's really traditionally what the bow was used to do, is to
Okay.
trip and to push.
Interesting.
Um, and then the last one, I don't think I can pronounce this. I'll try. Ijitsu. Ijitsu gives you +1 to initiative. So when you're rolling initiative, you're going to get a +1 to that dice roll. So Ijitsu is, for those of you who don't know, is the fast draw. The idea that you respond faster than most because you have trained yourself to draw your sword or your weapon very quickly or to fire your bow fast. So to duplicate that, I went with a +1. I decided that advantage was too much. So that's how I came up with that.
Nice. Has Simon seen the samurai yet?
No, thank God. Um,
I just wondered
but
if he gave it
it will
that
be
stamp of
happening
approval.
soon. So
Okay.
I will find out if I get ripped to bits or not.
Okay. Very cool. I like it. I like this one that you put so much time into learning about the history of it and things and incorporated that into the character class. Very cool. How about we have a lot of classes that start with the letter S. The next one is the Shadow Stalker.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, Shadowstalker. This is really the reimagined, overpowered subclass from Dungeons and Dragons called the Gloomstalker.
Mm.
Um, my home group had Gloomstalker in the group, and eventually we banned it from our group because it dominated play. It was better at pretty much doing everything,
Mm.
and we decided that anything that was essentially better at doing everything and everybody else was just being its bitch was probably something we needed to remove. So it was nice to actually try to find a solution to this for Shadowdark
Mm-hmm.
because I know thematically players really like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just its application, it just winds up being too good. So it gets a lot of weapons. It gets leather armor and shields. It is not intended to be heavily armored. It is supposed to be sneaking around a bit. It gets a D6, so it's basically its hit dice is like that of a cleric.
Okay.
Um, it's supposed to be an ambusher, so it gets advantage on initiative rolls, and you're an expert in sneaking and hiding, gaining advantage on related checks. So that's initiative, hiding, and sneaking. Really, what I'm taking aspects of the thief and reducing them down and giving them less,
Mm-hmm.
and then feeding it into this class. That's what I did.
Okay.
Um, the Iron Mind is advantage on checks related to something that affects your mind. There could be anything. The idea being that you're able to steely your mind against the darkness and the things that you're hunting in the dark.
Makes sense.
So that was very much something I was trying to figure out how to do with the Gloomstalker Ranger. It had an aspect to that. I didn't know how to do that very well. And in the end, I decided this was probably the easiest way to make it work.
Mm.
It does cast spells, and it does have spell casting. It's not a half caster. It's not a full caster. It is it's a partial caster,
Mm.
but um, it does cast spells and it does use wisdom. I am still not convinced that that was a good idea and that I should have maybe widened it out beyond just traditionally what people decide is a D20 plus your wisdom modifier. Uh, I'm not sure if that was the right decision, but that's how it's done. You don't get a lot of spells. In fact, when you look at this, you're probably thinking you don't really get very much for this class. But advantage on initiative and sneaking and hiding combined all at
That's
once
pretty
at
strong.
level
Yeah.
one,
Mm-hmm.
like even the thief doesn't get that.
Yeah. And invisibility is
So
a really good spell to have at level 3. I mean, that's
yeah, yeah, it is. Level one light is a really good spell to have.
yeah.
And what you'll also notice is the spellcaster doesn't have failure. So if you fail it, you won't be able to cast a spell, but it doesn't mean you can't try to cast that spell again the next round.
Yeah.
And it had to be that way because of the way I'd structured it. It's leaning more into being an ambusher, setting up the situation, responding first, protecting its mind from attack.
Mm-hmm.
It's got elements of exploration, heavy exploration, but also combat. But I couldn't put in a spell failure for its spell casting because it would be reduced down to having two things, just the ambusher and the iron mind as its things to make it sort of stand out, and it's just not enough. So that's why it's done that way. For those of you who are like, that's not how the Shadowdark system works. If you fail a spell, you can't cast it until you have a rest. It would be too brutal for a class like this
Yeah.
to restrict it like that.
Yeah.
So, you could still fail a spell, but you can still try again. And the first one is light because you need light. Without light, since you can't see in the dark, it's a bad situation. Invisibility is a really good spell. Alter Self is really useful. Arcane Eye is really good for, scoping out and scouting an area for danger.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what I think the Shadow Stalk is all about. And then Wrath is a brutal spell. And you'll notice that I didn't go with a tier 5 spell. I went with 2 tier 4 spells and a 2 tier 2 spells.
Mm.
And the reason is they fit the class better.
Yeah. I'd rather
Yeah,
have them that way anyway. I'd rather be on theme with the class than some spell that doesn't make sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I don't have a lot of questions about that. That's pretty straightforward. That's the Shadow Stalker. Next up, we have the Spell Sword.
So this is the pansy class. Um, so so there are too many people who love the Blade Singer subclass in Dungeons and Dragons, and the Blade Singer's been around a long time as other options and other versions that it wasn't a subclass. Um, I included this because Cajun from my home group wanted a Blade Singer.
Okay.
Um, and the class does a, I think this class does a pretty good job of casting spells through a sword. That's and being a performer,
Mm,
a fancy pants, basically. It's a weird class, I think.
okay.
But I was aware that when I was making it, that I needed to capture those sort of aspects to it. So it is primarily supposed to be a spellcaster, even though it does carry a sword. It doesn't get a lot of weapons, but it does get some, and you'll notice they're very specific.
Yeah, sword is pretty
Um,
important.
yeah, short sword, long sword, dagger. And it gets leather armor, so it gets some armor, even though it's a spellcaster. It is a half caster, not I don't think it's a full considered a full caster. It might even have the spell progression of the cleric, which isn't as good as the wizard.
Okay.
Um, you get a D4, so you don't get a lot of hit points, just like a wizard. Bless, so you know the bless spell, and it doesn't count toward the number of spells 9. Not my favorite way to structure a class doing something like that,
Mm-hmm.
but I wanted to make sure that that's the spell that you had, because I think one of the aspects of the Blade Singer and the Spell Sword is it's supposed to try to help others
Mm,
rather than to be a selfish prick and just do its own thing. So that was the way of sort of hardwiring Bless into the class so it was always there.
nice.
And then performance is really about advantage on checks related to performance, dancing, and singing. So all of the, um, this is all non-combat stuff, right? This isn't really going to come up if you're into singing and dancing and performing. This is what you want, and the Blade Singer had that aspect to it, and so I had tried to figure out how to simplify it down to something very short and easy, and that's what I came up with.
You could be a distraction, tactical wise.
Possibly.
Distract the ogres, entertain them while everybody sneaks behind them.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's what I would
Or
do.
just distract them. Maybe they like you so much, sleep with them for the night, no fight. Um,
Yeah,
Heck, they might even pay you.
yeah.
You never know. So, so the blade magic is what really makes this sort of stand out. This is why it's called the blade sword. You can cast wizard spells that you know through your blade that you hold.
Okay.
And the intention is that it's really sort of the conduit for your spells. You know, two spells of tier one
Hmm.
when you first start out, and you'll gain more. The table sort of indicates that progression. Um, and yeah, that's that's really the gist of it. Is it is basically a spellcaster that uses a sword to cast spells.
Okay. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Very similar to the Blade Singer from 5e, and I
It
think
is,
it's a pretty good port.
yeah.
Awesome. How about the Swashbuckler?
A lot of hair tearing. It was really painful.
This one was hard.
Like
Yeah.
it was really hard. Yeah,
Okay.
swashbuckler. So the swashbuckler subclass is a favorite of Simon and John in my home group.
Okay.
And Simon knows way too much about two weapon fighting and swashbucklers, and so
Uh,
does John.
right on.
Um, so I based the class off real life two weapon fighting, old pirate movies like Captain Blood, The Princess Bride,
Mm,
Sinbad, the Sinbad films,
mm.
and I had to make a completely new weapon for Shadowdark that didn't exist called the rapier.
Ah,
And only the swashbuckler, you might notice, is able to use the rapier because it doesn't exist in the core rule book because I had to make the bloody thing. Um, And so you still have to pay for it. You still
Yeah.
have to buy one, but you are the only one who is skilled in the use of the rapier.
Hmm.
And I had to do something that you're not really supposed to do in Shadowdark with this. And then I had to figure out how to make it work. And really, I just wanted to punch myself in the face many times trying to figure that one out. So it's got a whole bunch of weapons it can use.
Uh-huh.
But really, what you want to be doing is you want to be wielding a rapier and a dagger with
Okay.
this little baby. That's your go-to. Anything else is kind of like, I lost my rapier or my dagger and I can't do it right now because
Oh,
that would be a silly thing. Yeah, those are the things. That's the weapons that you want to be able to really cash in on this.
yeah.
You get leather armor and shield, so you can use a shield with a rapier if you want.
Okay.
It's a D6, so it's kind of like the hit points for a priest,
Mm-hmm.
and it gets dual wielder. So
Oh,
the thing that you don't do is give classes extra attack or additional attacks in Shadow Dark because action economy gets broken down really fast if you do so. But this is one of those times where the swashbuckler, everything I read about the swashbuckler and how they operated is they fought with a rapier and a dagger. And they did two weapon fighting, and that's normally how you did two weapon fighting. You used either a rapier or a dagger or two daggers.
hmm.
You never fight with two rapiers because that's actually more dangerous to you than the person you're fighting.
Okay.
And
Did not know
you
that.
never fight with two short swords or two long swords because that's too dangerous. Not to mention the damage output is going to get, it gets stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to be careful about that sort of thing. And you know those weapons aren't finesse weapons, so I needed it to be a finesse weapon as well. So you get to make two attacks on your turn instead of one, provided you're holding a rapier and a dagger in each hand. Otherwise, you can make two attacks if you're holding two daggers in each hand.
Mm.
That's the only way you can do that. It's intended to work that way. The rapier is a finesse weapon, so is the dagger, so you can use dexterity rather than strength. And that's how the swashbuckler used to fight. They relied on their speed and dexterity rather than their strength.
Okay. Makes sense.
Um, and then they get one other ability, which it looks like it doesn't get very much, the swashbuckler.
You get dual wielders. That's pretty good.
It is pretty good,
Yeah.
but I also figured out the damage output from a dagger and a rapier,
Mm-hmm.
and it would probably not be much more than the likes of where's a good example? A warhammer. If you could wield a warhammer or a
Mm-hmm.
bastard sword, you're probably or a great axe, you're probably not pumping out, or even a great sword, you're probably not pumping out more damage. You're probably
Okay.
pumping out about the equivalent. The only difference is you're doing two attacks to do about the same amount of damage.
Makes sense.
The average will probably be a little bit higher because you're using two dice to get your damage off,
Mm-hmm.
but you're also making two attacks, so you could miss both times, right?
Right.
Gentile, you are an expert in acrobatics. So you get acrobatics, you get stealth, you get guile. Guile could mean a lot of things, and romance.
And
I
romance.
know that sounds confusing, and what the hell am I supposed to do with that? Um, that is sort of the nature of the swashbuckler. It's kind of like I'm going to sweet talk my way into this situation. If I have to fight my way out of it, I will. I'm going to use guile and really, whether that's persuading somebody or deceiving somebody, that's what guile is. I'm going to get my way. And yeah, if I can't do that, then I'm going to sneak past them. They're hard to get at. So they've got a lot of things they can do that are sort of non-combaty,
Mm-hmm.
that are more in the social realm. And you're also trained in all skills related to dexterity and charisma, which is a big thing. So anytime that you're required to do something that's related to dexterity or charisma, you're going to get advantage on that
That's pretty
associated
big.
check.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. So it's a pretty beefy thing, even though it looks like it doesn't get very much. Gentile is quite extensive.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty impressive. Um, and again, just mixing a combination of some tactical stuff plus some abilities that aren't related, that might not be related to combat. So it kind of rounds it out pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I hope so.
I like it.
Well, that was my goal.
Very good. That is the Swashbuckler. And of course, for those of you that may be watching this on the replay or just joining us, this is a walkthrough of the Player's Expansion 2 for Shadowdark RPG. The link is in the description of the video, so if you would like to go pick this up for yourself to play it in your Shadowdark game, the link is there, and it is pay what you want, so you can pick it up for free. And if you find any errors or anything else, let us know, and then we'll get them fixed. The alpha playtest is what this is. So, the next one is, we got a lot of stuff here for the War Mage.
Okay, so the War Mage is a class or subclass that has been around a while in Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
It's also been a player desire, an unreasonable desire, I would say, where you get to play a wizard in heavy armor.
Yes.
With armor, right? That's essentially what it's always been about. I had to keep it tame for Shadowdark. So I've said this before as like, if you expect to walk around in heavy armor, like plate armor, casting as many spells and as powerful as spells as any wizard, go play with yourself, because nobody else wants to play with you. Do you know what I mean? It's really completely unreasonable. But this War Mage does wear armor, but their armor is special. And I did this deliberately because I didn't know how else to make it work. This is basically a full caster, like, you know. So you get some weapons. You get more weapons than the wizard does. So you've got a few options if you want to go to weapons because you've run out of spells you can cast, because you could run out of spells potentially. The armor is special, so I'll look at it below. But you get the same hit points as a wizard. The arcane armor is basically you actually get yourself some leather armor, and you transform that armor into magical armor that only you can wear. And it grants 11 plus your dexterity modifier, which is essentially, if you know anything about Shadowdark, the exact calculation for leather armor. So really what I'm saying is you can wear leather armor, but it's armor that you've customized for you so you can cast spells. I guess there's more flavor in this than there is mechanical usefulness, because I could have just written down you get to use leather armor and got rid of arcane armor. But I also wanted to make sure that it was armor that only you could utilize. So you're not making magical armor that you can pass around and then make another one and pass it around. You get detect magic. I don't know why you would not have detect magic if you are a war mage. So I built that in, and yeah, it's not part of your known spells. It's like when I did the bless spell. I wouldn't consider this great design, but I knew that there would be players when they get their two first tier spells, they might not take detect magic. They might take something else, but I wanted them to make sure that they had it there, because it just seemed important for the class. So that's why it's there. Spell casting works pretty much like a wizard. I don't think there's much else to say about this other than I made one. I made one.
Yeah. Outside of not being able to shoot bows, this is kind of close to like the elf in Beckme, where you can cast some spells, you can do some fighting, kind of a little cross between the two. So
yeah. If you look at spellcasters like the wizard and Shadowdark, usually they get one sort of auxiliary ability in their spell casting, and their spells sort of do most of the heavy lifting, right? And so I've decided that, I think when I was looking at the core classes for Shadowdark and I was looking at the wizard, and the choices was, okay, you can learn more spells as a wizard. I didn't really want to do that with the war mage.
Right.
And the problem is you still have to find a spell scroll to be able to do that. Like, you still have to find the scroll to be able to transfer it. And then it got learn two languages. And I was like, I think being able to detect magical stuff is probably the thing that I would go for more than
Right.
anything else. So I put that in.
Yeah.
Um, this might wind up requiring a revision. It might wind up feeling weaker than a wizard, but wizards don't get to wear armor.
Yeah. There you go.
And I don't think I've seen anybody use mage armor in Shadowdark ever.
No. Well,
Not
you got
once.
limited spells. I mean, that one kind of falls
That's
off.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. That is the War Mage. Our last class will be the War Master.
Yeah. So the War Master is based off the fighter subclass, the Battle Master in Dungeons and Dragons 5e.
Okay.
Um, I think this turned out to be more interesting as a fighter class for Shadowdark, where some people want to do more than just hit the monster and do damage,
Mm-hmm.
where they want a few choices. And that's really what this was all about when I was putting it together. It is kind of structured like the samurai, but the difference being is what it does and what the samurai does is very different.
Mm.
I suppose you could say this is even like the new modern weapon masteries that I can't stand for D&D 2024. Um, so what I wanted to do is I wanted to make it simple enough that you could apply that concept
Mm-hmm.
without making it too complicated. And that's as simple as I can make it. Um, so they get all weapons just like fighters. They get all armor and shields just like a fighter.
Mm-hmm.
They get the same hit dice as a fighter. But I wanted them to have blacksmith.
Yeah, that's
I
interesting.
was thinking, and I was really thinking hard about the fighter and what they got as auxiliary abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to carry more stuff sounds fine. Um, and I guess grit, being able to lift heavy things, I guess that's also fine. But I wanted something that leaned more into the fact that you were a master of war, therefore you would actually make your own armor and weapons
Mm-hmm.
and repair them as well. So I wanted that to be part of it. I also realized that if I gave them an ability like that, that the dungeon master would then expect them to have access to a forge, smithing tools, and materials. So I wrote it into the ability that they already have that stuff, just so that we don't have players and DMs trying to kill each other or getting upset and beating each other to death. And then there's a movie called The Art of War with Wesley Snipes.
Mm.
And I thought it would be kind of nice rather than to worry about being able to carry heavy things or, hit things and do more damage or hit them more often, like the weapon mastery concept that was sort of very generic, or even, the grit thing where you get advantage on checks related to overcoming force and stuck stuff. I thought Art of War would be more interesting. So advantage on checks that are related to war, historical battles,
Mm-hmm.
military organizations, and and combat tactics. It's probably not going to come up in battle, but it will probably help with the planning
Yeah,
process.
that's what I was thinking.
And that's the intention. The blacksmithing and the art of war are all about preparing for your the war that you're going to engage in, whether that's small scale or large scale. Um,
Is there armor or weapon damage in Shadowdark, where every once in a while your stuff can get damaged outside of like a rust monster?
no, no, not really.
No.
No, there are a couple of monsters that can destroy wood and metal outside of just bone and flesh,
Yeah.
but they're far and few between.
Okay.
And that would add a level of complexity to the game that would probably make it a little
Yeah.
bit frustrating.
Makes sense.
But should that come up, you can repair your own armor and weapons now
Yeah.
because you have blacksmithing as an option, and you've got
Very
all the
cool.
tools and the gear.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I
So
like it.
maneuvers is the big thing for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you get to employ specialized techniques to defeat your enemies with all weapons, and kind of like the mystical archer, I decided not to make this something where you slowly accrued different skills. I decided to front load it and give you everything.
Mm. It's like on Netflix. You get the whole series at once.
Exactly. Is that a mistake or is that a good thing? I think it will only be discovered during play. I think it will require people to play the game to decide whether it is going to work. But I wanted to give people the option to be able to try a few different things from level 1 right through to level 10 or level 0 to 10. So you can disarm. So when you hit a target, you can take the weapon it holds off them so that you now have it, or you can knock it to the ground. Knocking it to the ground might not be quite as useful as just taking it off them, but you don't have a hand free to hold it, then taking it off them won't be much use to you, so knocking it to the ground's your next option, right?
Right.
So disarming somebody that you're fighting, so as long as you hit them, you can disarm them. There's no check. The check is the dice roll to attack. I did that deliberately. One of the things I despise about the anything is where there's 2 dice rolls. You make one dice roll and then another dice roll to determine whether something works.
Yeah.
Where decide whether it's going to be a stat check or an attack roll. I decided that the attack roll was sufficient. You just have to decide. So you have to declare. It says you declare. Should be doing that at the beginning of your turn when you make your attack. I'm going to try to disarm them. This is what this attack is trying to do. Parry. When you hit a target, increase your armor class by 1 for 1 round. So it's really pretty tame. It might not be strong enough, we'll see, but it gives you a little bit more armor class if you feel that's important. Evade. So rather than making an attack you dodge. So the enemy has disadvantage on attack rolls for 1 round. So there isn't a dodge action in Shadowdark, so I've built it into this class so that it kind of is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. And then precision is really you get +1 to hit for 1 round. So if you want to you're worried about hitting your target because you think it's got a high armor class and you want to increase that possibility, you declare it's a precision attack. If you want to do more damage, then it's a power attack and you get +1 to your damage roll.
Nice.
If you hit, of course, for 1 round. You can choose to trip a target, so you could also knock it to the ground. That may be useful, that may not be. You can also push a target, but the problem with pushing a target is you have to hit the target, but you also have to be wearing a shield because you're using your shield to push them back.
Yeah.
Not your weapon. So yes, that's how I built the Warmaster.
I like it. Always been a fan of the Battle Master. I always thought it was cool. I'm a fan of having a lot of different abilities to be able to do things though. So yeah. I think this one would be very interesting to see in playtest for sure. Now, just to verify the disarm, you still get the damage plus the effect, right? So when it says when you hit a target, you get.
Yeah. So when you hit a target, you take the weapon it holds off them. So you're not doing any damage.
Oh, so you don't do any damage. Okay, very good. No, makes sense.
Yeah. You're giving up the damage. You hit the target. You're giving up the damage to disarm them.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Rather than getting both. I guess it'll come down to time whether people find that confusing and I need to rewrite it and be a little bit more specific.
Yeah.
See.
Very cool. Excited to try it out. Cool. Looks like Agile Monk has joined us. Hey, thanks for joining us in the chat. And holy smokes, thank you for the super chat and the membership. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. Sorry to hear that you just now got away from your work. It is late. I'm glad you finally were able to get out of there, though, and join us for some Shadowdark RPG discussion. Speaking of which, for those of you just joining us, one last time, of course, this is the Player's Expansion 2 for Shadowdark RPG. You can find it on Drive-Thru RPG using the link in the description below. It is pay what you want, so pick it up for free and give it a try. Bring it up to your Game Master. There's actually 2 of them, so if you are tired of playing all of the classes and ancestries in the core rulebook, Fred has the Player's Expansion 1 and 2. How many is that? That's like 22 classes and
21 classes. There's 10 in the first, 11 in the second.
Yeah.
I think there's 17 ancestries in the first book and 16 in the second one, right?
Yeah. Very cool. Speaking of ancestries, we're going to move on to that. I actually know a little bit about these. Yeah.
I
Uh,
hope so.
yes, yes. Agile Monk says you bought the expansion. Great job. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It was fun to work on these with Fred. I did try to turn my microphone up a little bit. Let's see here. There we go. A little bit more gain. See how that works. Maybe that'll be better. I think I was quiet in my video the other day as well. Cool. And so tell me about the Ancestries. Why did you bring me along on this one?
Oh, come on. Well, one, because you're really good at doing stuff, and two,
Yeah,
I didn't want to do all the ancestries on my own because it was a lot of extra work.
makes sense. Yeah.
And I thought I could flob it off onto you as along with some of the layout requirements. So,
Yeah.
and I always wanted to work with you on a project and see if um, we would hate each other at the end of it or actually continue to be friends.
Yeah. I think it worked out all right.
And worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So if
So would you want to talk about these more, because I've been talking a lot and I'm
yeah,
starting to lose my voice.
you've been talking a lot, and my throat is already sore from you talking a lot. I can't believe. Yeah. So here we go with the ancestry. So Fred told me, he's like, I want you to come up with the ancestry. So I'm thinking maybe a handful of them, and he's hoping for 15, 16 of them. I'm like, okay, but the funny thing is what, there's like 8 of them in the core rule book. Plus, you had 15 in the Player's Expansion 1.
17.
17. So that's
17.
like 25 ancestries that you could already select. And I have to come up with something fresh and new with 25 gone. And I think we did okay, though, to be honest. But it was a little bit challenging. And we'll just go through some. Some of these are a bit silly, I will admit. Some of these are ones that I looked through the list of 25. I was just like, well, I think this one's missing, inspired by some D&D stuff. And there's like 4 of these that are actually my own homebrew races that I was like, well, Fred, I'm introducing you to these. Here we go. So we'll start with the alien. We didn't really have anything from, didn't really have an alien race, I guess, in the previous 25. So it's basically... you're a humanoid from another world, and you have the ability called telepath, where you can communicate telepathically with any other creature you can see, read surface thoughts of a creature that you can see within range. So that that stuff that freaks people out about aliens being able to read your mind, this one can.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember when we had the discussion about how it would work, telepathy seemed to be the most sensible thing to give the alien.
Mm-hmm.
And we also, you'll notice that the description of the alien is kind of just humanoid from another world.
Yeah.
We left it completely open because we figured you're going to create an alien that could look like anything under the sun.
Yeah.
And we want you to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to create the classic bubble-headed green aliens, you can. If you want to be a taco that poops ice cream, you can do that as well.
Yeah.
All right. The next one is the cactoid, which is a green humanoid with waxy skin covered in spines. We wanted to include at least one plant-based race in here, and we ended up having 2. We split them off. This one is a cactus-looking humanoid that has the ability called Toxic. Immune to poison. Direct contact with the spines is poisonous. DC 12 Constitution check or be paralyzed.
Yep, that seemed like the most sensible thing. Is like if you stick yourself with a cactus, you're probably going to wind up with some sort of toxin that's going to paralyze you and be nasty for a while. So we thought that was the easiest way to duplicate that. And yeah, it's very much, it's funny how when we started off with this, we literally started off with what was 1, and it split off into 2.
Yeah.
And it took us ages to decide what these 2 different ancestries would look like to make sure they were different from each other. But we got there.
We did. When you already have 25 ancestries to pick from and you have to come up with more, it's interesting what you can come up with. So the next one I was surprised it wasn't there, and that is the cat folk. Now the cat folk is a humanoid with feline features, and they have the ability called Climber. You are expert in climbing and have advantage on related checks. You climb at your speed, and when you fall, you take half the damage. Yeah, your
It's
tabaxi.
basically the tabaxi, isn't it?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. Basically, the
yeah.
tabaxi, they can climb, so that takes away, especially at the lower levels, a little bit of that fear if you fall, that you're gonna die.
Yeah, because yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and it makes sense because that's what cats usually do is they land on their feet and they don't take quite so much damage.
Yep.
But then you
Exactly.
still have to take them to the vet because they probably hurt their
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
joints.
Unless they fall on a cactoid. If a cactoid catches the cat folk, they're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then it gets infected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The celestial mortals with celestial heritage that are blessed by the angels and heaven. They have an ability called blessings. As an action, you stabilize a dying creature in close range.
So I think when you were trying to do this, you did not want to give this. When we were saying celestial, we weren't thinking angel with wings.
Mm-mm.
You were thinking, I guess, more someone who had heritage from an angel, but hadn't taken on all the aspects of an angel, essentially, right?
Yeah, I think so. I was
And I think,
mhm.
sorry,
I was looking for the Asimar for from 5e. Is kind of
yeah,
yeah.
and we were trying to figure out what was the thing that would help s- make it stand out that was sort of celestial in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, we decided that, stabilizing a dying creature in Shadowdark is actually quite a difficult thing unless you use magic,
Mm-hmm.
provided you do have magic left to do that. It's actually not very easy because it's a DC 15 intelligence check, I think it is.
I've watched a lot of failed checks. In my limited time playing
Yeah.
Shadowdark, I've seen a lot of failed checks.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
and a DC 15 check for intelligence is hard to do.
Yeah.
It can so um the end result is we thought this would be a nice way of sort of like a celestial could probably keep your party ticking along quite nicely.
Yeah. Yep. The next one is the chlorophoid. This is our other plant-based creature that got split off from the original. This one is a tree-like life form with bark, skin, and leaves, and has an ability called regenerative roots. That as an action, you can root into the ground while rooted. You cannot be moved, shoved, or knocked prone. And once per day, while in sunlight or rain, you regain 1 hit point. It's basically a tree folk.
Yeah, it is. Very much so. It was really hard to make this one.
It was. Yeah.
And we gave it usually you get languages in our
Mm,
ancestry, and we didn't give it languages. We gave it just communicate telepathically with any creature within their range, which you would look at that and then look at the alien and think, oh, that's the same thing. It's getting more, but it's not because we cranked up the power on the alien because that can read surface thoughts.
right. It's got
You
that.
can communicate, but you can't read surface thoughts of a creature. You
Mm-mm.
can't read their mind. You can just talk in their head with
Yeah.
them. That's the concept.
Yeah. The chlorophoid. Next one up is the half siren. This is a captivating humanoid with iridescent scales and a beautiful voice, and has an ability called Song. As an action, one creature of level 4 or less that can hear you within range must make a DC 12 charisma check or be paralyzed for 1 round by your stunning, captivating humanoid. Yes.
Yeah. So the song ability was really hard to come up with, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We
That
really
this was hard.
struggled.
Hmm.
It's not the only one that was a big struggle,
No, we're coming
and
up on the next one next.
oh, I think ultimately in the end, the half siren is probably something that'll probably get adjusted once we get through play testing with it.
Hmm.
Um, but we decided in the end to give it sort of some limitations
Hmm.
and just see how it would play.
Yeah.
And maybe it will work, maybe it won't. Um, Half sirens sort of suggests that the siren was potentially raped by something else, but that's not necessarily the case. We could have called it something else other than siren or half siren. Um, and I know people get upset when they see the word half, and some people are quite happy with the word half. But really, what it is, we just what we were trying to do is not say that it's a full blown siren monster.
Yeah.
It's something else.
You know what would be
And
fun
so,
is to take the half siren and make a spell sword, a half siren spell sword.
yeah, that would be quite entertaining. Yes, it would, for
Yes,
sure.
or even the swashbuckler.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Guile, romance.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
yeah. So speaking of ones that were hard to come up with the abilities, the Gorgon was next. The Medusa Gorgon, not the Taurus the Bull Gorgon. This is a reptilian humanoid with coiling snakes for hair and scaled skin. And they have an ability called Petrify, which seems this might be pretty strong. As an action, one creature of level 2 or less that you look at within range, DC 12 con, or be petrified, as
Yeah.
per the Gorgon.
I will say that calling something the Gorgon when there's a Gorgon in D&D and then there's the Medusa as well, it almost feels like we probably should have called it something else other than Gorgon, but just so that other people didn't sort of attach it to, oh, you're playing Medusa. Oh, you're playing a Gorgon. Oh, that's the bull with the armored bull, isn't it? The Gorgon. So I do feel like there's going to be a bit of confusion from people. The petrify ability is, I have no doubts that we're probably going to have to make some adjustments to it.
Yeah, I think
But it
so.
took us so long to figure out how to make that work in Shadowdark. And it's intended to be really powerful against low-level monsters, but it's really not going to be very effective against higher level monsters. In fact, it won't work at all. So, yeah, who knows?
Who knows?
We throw it in there. Don't ever use everything all at once, people. Just leave that to, let the sacrificial lamb like myself and my home group deal with that sort of nonsense.
Agile Monk says, "Have you heard of the new SD monster? It's called a Wallafred. Um, it's made by crossing Fred and Wally DM. Thanks, Agile Monk. That's scary. Yeah, you're doing a great job of distracting us. I appreciate it. Now back to the Ancestries. This next one is called the Jalarian. Now the Jalarian is actually one of the homebrew ones that I created. This is basically a humanoid with a bioluminescence and the lower extremities of a jellyfish. And I always envision them. I know. I told you some of these are a little bit weird. This came out of my mind. So I don't, I probably had a couple of drinks by then, by the time I was like, what would be cool? So this one actually has two abilities, which I had to beg and plead to, to be able to do. I was like, I want two. The first one is hover. You always hover off the ground, which might not seem too bad, but that means you're not going to be touching any pressure plates for traps or stuff like that. And then bioluminescent. Once per day as an action, you glow brightly with heatless light illuminating out to near distance for 1 hour. So you can basically be a torch when that torch goes out.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Jellyfish.
We had a lot of discussions around this. I think ultimately when we got to the special abilities and we were deciding, well, I feel like hover and bioluminescence are both really important to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yet normally with Ancestry, you only give them one in Shadowdark.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the end, I said, fuck it. Just do it. Just do it.
Sometimes you gotta bend those rules.
The more people who play jellyfish, the better.
Humanoid jellyfish.
Yeah. So it's one of my favorite Ancestries, honestly.
Is it? Nice.
Yeah, it is. It just because it's so nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of which, the other three homebrew ones are going to be just as crazy. Or well, maybe not.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, that one is the Kanjaru. Now the Kanjaru is a humanoid with large, powerful legs, and you can jump near range. You have advantage on checks related to jumping. So if you kind of figure out where the Kanjaru came from, yeah, there's that.
Kangaroo, Australia kangaroo. I know that one.
I basically wanted, I realized there wasn't a heron or a rabbit folk, and I wanted something that could jump that wasn't And I was just like, maybe it'll be the kangaroo. So yeah, we have the kangaroo, and I just imagine this. I mean, just these huge thighs and stuff like that, where they can just bounce and spring up, and yeah, bouncy people, jumpy.
Yes. How often will it come into the game? I have no idea.
Yeah, no idea.
Unless you're playing Donkey Kong
Yeah.
in Shadowdark.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, I mean, you think about it, you can jump up near range. And near range is what?
That's right.
30,
Yeah,
30 feet?
yeah.
30 feet? So, hey,
So 30 feet. Yeah, near range is 30 feet.
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
The next one is a leprechaun, a small pointy-eared sprite with a nose for treasure. The leprechaun has the ability called Treasure Hunter. You can detect treasure through barriers within double near range.
Can I just say that
Yes, you can say whatever you want.
that was so much fun to write that down.
Yeah.
I don't know how useful it is, but I can just imagine there's going to be a player out there whose only desire in the game is just to find treasure. And if they can detect it through a door, a wall, a chest, and they've got, their detection is up to about 60 feet, which is double near range, they're going to have way too much fun.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like a particularly powerful ability.
I think you're going to be surprised.
I think it's going to prove to be highly entertaining. Yeah.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
This next one is actually one of my favorites because this is one of my favorite Back Me D&D monsters, and I have found myself in my 5e creation. I am creating a lot of them, and that is the living statue, a magical humanoid made of bronze, stone, or crystal. You have broken free of your creator's control. Your ability is you are a magical construct. You do not eat, breathe, or drink, and hostile spellcasting checks that target you have disadvantage due to your magical nature.
Yeah, I suppose you could say we kind of pulled 4 different things into one.
Mm-hmm.
But since we were looking at the living statue and how it sort of operated, I mean, maybe calling it something other than the living statue is a better idea. But since there is a monster called the living statue, isn't it? Oh,
There is,
hang on,
yeah.
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This will be one of those things that it'll come down. I honestly don't think that, no, shenanigans are definitely going to happen with this one for sure,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Just with the fact that you don't have to worry about breathing.
Yeah.
You're going to wind up walking under the ocean and underwater through areas that have no air, and not have a problem.
Yeah.
So
especially if you're made of stone, you just sink to the bottom and then doom, 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 walk across.
Exactly. Yeah.
Our next one is the Lycan, a supernatural lycanthrope hybrid werewolf. And the ability for our lycanthrope hybrid werewolf is called Impervious. You take half damage from non-magical sources.
Yeah. So we had a lot of problems coming up with this because it's not intended to be a lycanthrope. It's not intended to be a werewolf or a werebear or something like that. It's intended to be a playable thing that's kind of like that, but not the same. Because the last thing we wanted to do is have an ability where you can only be harmed by silver and magical weapons. It would be too much. So we had to sort of. This is why I think the choice of Lycan as a name was the right idea. And in terms of its effect on the game, I mean, magical damage is still going to go all the way through. But if it's non-magical, it's gonna halve it. So yeah, it'll come down to play. This is one of those ancestries where we don't know if it's going to be too much.
Right. Yeah, that's the players will break it and then they will let you know.
Yes, they will.
The next one is another number 3 of 4 of my homebrew ones. This is the Mantian, and this is basically based off of the tricrine. Is it tricrine? Tricrine?
Thycrine?
Thrycrine. Thank you. It's an insectoid creature or a humanoid with insect features and 4 arms. And the ability for this one is secondary arms. The additional arms cannot be used to hold a shield, wield a weapon, or cast spells.
Which doesn't seem like it's very useful because it basically gives you a list of things you can't do rather than a list of things you can do. But we realized in the end it was easier to list the things you can't do rather than list all the things you could do. And there are quite a few different things you could do. I am not going to tell you what they are. Wally's probably not going to bother telling you.
No.
You will have to figure it out because we figured it out because we had to write it all down.
Yes, figure it out and leave a comment below. Let us know what the Mantian can do. Or maybe that's probably not a great idea. Next up, we have the Shapeshifter, a human that can transform into an animal. And the ability is transform. As an action, select one animal you can transform into for 1 hour. Your stats and size stay the same. And the shapes that you can change into are ape, badger, bat, bear, bird, cat, fish, frog, octopus, rat, snake, and wolf.
Yeah. So the thing to understand with the Shapeshifter ability, if it's not clear, is you're not transforming into that actual animal. You're not actually a badger when you become a badger. You just look like a badger, which is why your stats and your size stay the same.
Fred had explained that to me like 4 times.
Many bloody times. It was really hard for him to understand. We realized that the problem with allowing you to take on the stats of a particular monster or an animal, and they're listed in the Shadowdark book. So that's not the problem. We've got them here. The problem is that there's a level of shenanigans that I really wanted to leave to the shaman rather than even the shaman is proving to be quite difficult. We've done a bit of play testing with the shaman already, and there are some things that I need to sort of stipulate, a couple of word adjustments to
Phil
help
broke
clean
that
it
one.
up. Yeah, because Phil really has broken it. But then I saw Simon use it one day, and AJ Pickett almost lost his shit. So so this is why we've written the Shapeshifter the way it is. The intention is that you take on the form of the animal. You're not actually becoming the animal.
Yeah.
That's why it says shape.
Yeah. That's it.
That's that.
Our next one is the final of my homebrew races. This is the Tritelk. The Tritelk is a supernatural humanoid with a 3rd telekinetic eye. And with this, you have telekinesis. You can move an object slowly within far range, weighing 1 gear slot or less.
So we had some discussions about this one. I thought it was a cool idea. And we were being able to speak common was fine. And then we were like, okay, what about telepathic communication? It seems like that would make sense. And then of course, we had to look at, well, what else have we given telepathy? And the alien had telepathy. And then we're like, oh, hang on, but so has the chlorophoid. Are we going too far? And in the end, I said, look, the difference between the alien is still quite significant.
Right.
And the difference between the chlorophoid isn't real. It would make the chlorophoid probably not quite as good, but we're just giving them common. And I was like, would you prefer to create an ancestry where they can communicate with something more and there's a better chance of doing so? Or would you prefer them to blow them up and burn them to the ground with magic or shove their blade into their gut? And we decided that it was all right.
Yeah. And my side of it, I wanted something that could do stuff with telekinesis. My original idea was being able to hurl that across to somebody and as a ranged attack, but Fred talked me off the ledge, and now that's why it says that the object moves slowly. But it's basically a mage hand. I mean, you kind of
it is. It is a mage hand that can't be weaponized because we realized the problems of suddenly being able to move something that was 1 gear slot or even more
Yeah.
So that's why it says one gear slot or less, because there's
Hmm.
no weight in Shadowdark.
Yeah.
And yeah, as soon as we started thinking of some of the things you could do. I was thinking of some of the things that I would potentially do with it.
Hmm.
I was like, there are too many problems.
Exactly. And our final ancestry is the undead, a humanoid that has risen as the undead but retains their intelligence. They have an ability. The languages are common and they can supernaturally to the undead. They can speak to other undead. Um, Fortitude. You do not need to eat, drink, breathe, or sleep. You still need to do nothing for 8 hours to gain the benefits of a rest.
Yeah. So yeah, it doesn't circumvent your ability to require that rest to get whatever stuff you're going to get back, like hit points and spells if you're a spell caster from the
Right.
class or whatever. But you don't actually have to eat, drink, and breathe or sleep. But you do have to at least do nothing for 8 hours.
Yeah.
But you don't have to sleep. So you could be awake. That would be fine. And normally, when you take a rest, you're supposed to eat food, but you don't have to eat. So that sort of gets rid of that part of the rest.
Mm-hmm.
So your rest is going to look very different when you take a
Mm-hmm.
rest. You won't be eating, you won't be sleeping, you'll just be doing nothing for 8 hours.
You'll be bored. You'll be doing crossword puzzles and
You are now the sentry for every single shift.
yep. Awesome. Yeah, so I think that does it for us. That is the Players Expansion 2 for Shadowdark RPG. You can pick this PDF up on Drive Through RPG. There's a link in the description below. This is pay what you want, so you can pick it up for free. But if you are so inclined, if you can throw an extra dollar in there or what have you, it helps us get to those awards that Drive Through RPG has, like the copper, the silver, the Electrum awards. And it also helps inspire us to create more things. And it does have the bookmarks there, so you can just skip right through them. And don't forget to pick up the Players Expansion 1. All you need to do is follow Fred over on DriveThru RPG. You'll get both of those and more of Fred's Shadowdark content when it is published on the website.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, so there's a monster book coming probably
okay,
this year.
there we go.
AJ keeps sending me images of progression in terms of the monsters he's been drawing, and yeah, they're really good. They're really
They are
really good.
really good.
But yeah, it's asking somebody to hand draw 100 monsters when he runs a YouTube channel and he's trying to do other stuff as well.
Mm.
It's a difficult task. I've only got about 40 stat blocks I have to make. I've made about 60. And when we get to 100, we'll put out a book. Um, and yeah,
Yeah.
that will probably happen somewhere near the end of the year or maybe the beginning of next year. I don't know. We'll see how long it takes. It's a lot of work to do for two people
Yeah.
or three, should I say, since poor Wally will get dragged into the whole thing. Like, here, Wally, here's all the pictures and here's all the material, all the lore and the stat
Together.
blocks. Chuck it into a book, please. Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all kinds of great stuff. If you are a player in a game and you play Shadowdark, make sure you get these 2 expansions and get them to your game master and try some of these out. Let us know if some of them are underpowered, too powered, or just right. Whether tell us which of these character classes that you liked, which one you enjoyed the most, and which wacky ancestry that you broke in your game. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and also be sure to check out Fred's YouTube channel. You can find a link in the description below to How to D&D, and Fred posts out a lot of videos on Shadowdark and other role-playing games.
Yeah. Too
Yeah,
many.
too many. Too many.
Mm.
So I think we're good there, Fred. So if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and get out of here. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you next time, and on to the next.